Welcome to this segment of Cooking with Insightful Nana. Today we're going to cook snap beans. We're going to call these snap beans white trash cooking. White trash snap beans. Now I use the term white trash very loosely. It generally is a term used for those people who were very poor and who had to cook cheaply and inexpensively and still provide a good meal. My grandmother cooked this way, and I used to think that we were raised on soul food. But after finding a white trash cooking cookbook, I realized that my grandmother and my mother were white trash cooks. So we're going to cook white trash snap beans. Okay, here are our ingredients for our white trash snap beans. Again, I use the term white trash loosely. These are the beans that my grandmother and my mother fixed, and they include bacon, red potatoes, snap beans or green beans, and salt. That's it. We'll go from there. My grandmother used to call these snap beans, and I always wondered why she called them snap beans. I thought they were just green beans or string beans is what I was familiar with, but she called them snap beans, and it must be because that little snap sound that it makes when you snap the bean in half. But we're going to start by taking off the little ends of the bean on this end as well as the other end. Snap those off and then break or snap your bean in half. Okay, here we have our prepared beans and potatoes. The amounts don't make too much difference. I've got about probably 2.5 to 3 pounds of beans here, about 7 potatoes, but the amounts don't make a difference. If you have a lot of beans, just add a few more potatoes. Now the potatoes I'm using, I mentioned that they are the red potatoes. I'm from the West and I'm used to the russet potato that comes out of Idaho, but most of the country uses the red potatoes, and that's what my grandmother or my grandma used to use, so that's what we're using for these beans. Now I've cut the potatoes in these large chunks. You want them small enough that they'll be able to cook within about between 10 and 15 minutes. When your beans are done, you want your potatoes to be done. And so they're in a large chunk or a large bite-sized piece. And we've prepared our potatoes and put them on top of our beans. You'll need to be the judge on how much salt you use. Some people like their food quite salty, others a little bit more cautious, so just salt it according to taste. Now I use a lot of bacon for flavoring, so I'll open up a pound of bacon and then put the rest in the freezer, and so when I need bacon for flavoring, I'll just pull it out and put it in the microwave for just a few seconds, just so it softens up just a little bit so you can cut it off easily. What I've got here today probably equals or will equal about 4 strips of bacon that I'll put into my pot. Okay, as you can see here, I've put the bacon on top. We're putting raw bacon. This bacon has not been pre-cooked. It's raw bacon. Okay, we've added our water. I fill the pot till just about the top of the vegetables. It can be reseated just a little bit, but make sure the vegetables are almost completely covered. Okay, we've covered our pot now, and we're going to turn it on high until it comes to a boil. After it boils, turn your heat down to simmer. They'll simmer for about 15 minutes. I check your beans after about 15 minutes and see if they're done. You don't want to overcook your beans, but just make sure that they get well done. And then check your potatoes. Your potatoes should cook at the same rate as your beans. Now these beans have been cooking about 12 minutes. And I'm just checking these. The potatoes are getting done. You can use just a few more minutes before they're completely done. The beans feel just a touch firm, so I'm going to leave it just for a couple more minutes. The beans and potatoes now are done. These took about 20 minutes to cook. The beans have changed color a little bit. They'll take on a kind of a sage color rather than being bright green, but they're not mushy. They have a little bit of a firm texture to them. I like to not serve my beans for at least a couple of hours after I've cooked them. That way the flavors blend and you get a nice bacon flavor to your beans and potatoes. There's also a nice flavor to the liquid that is in the beans. My grandma used to call it pot liquor, and she liked to drink the pot liquor when we had eaten all the beans. I personally am not into drinking the pot liquor, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's full of vitamins, and if you like the bean flavor, it's a great little drink. Thank you for joining me with Cooking with Insightful Nana. Join me at my site, insightfulnana.com. There'll be a recipe that you can download there. It's a free recipe, so come on to insightfulnana.com and get your free recipe.